Well, good morning, everybody. Um, I'm like suffused with happiness to be here after being gone for a few weeks. Um, it was a long time to be away from, you know, I guess I would say it is from that which nourishes, so, which would be you. So I'm very glad to be back. Um, and um, what I'm going to do for a while,
All the way up. Yeah.
a while in my case may turn out to be years, is talk about or try to talk about dependent origination um, in a manner that is personal, embodied, focusing on our day to day lives, focusing on how is this useful? How is this something that will make a difference in the way I deal with the things that come up in my life? Um, I've been teaching um, from the Buddha's teaching on dependent origination for a very long time. But every time I do a class or a workshop, it generally ends up coming out very heady, very intellectual. And the truth is, I don't actually know how to do it differently. So this is going to be us doing this together over a course of time, trying to figure out what a word like ignorance means to us in a day to day basis. What is birth and death? Not as abstract concepts, but as something um, that supports our practice and our skillfulness and our calm and non-reactivity in the way that we live. This is this is what we come here for. And yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. And there may be times when I'm teaching where I barely even mention this cycle of dependent origination. I may focus somewhere else, but I know that that's what I'm unpacking. For those of you who have no idea what this whole dependent origination thing is, um, it is. I don't know where time fits into this, so I'm going to go with it is the experience that the Buddha had at the moment of awakening. This was the Buddha's aha moment, sitting under the tree, waking up, and going, oh, that's how it all works. And when the Buddha went to teach it, uh, the Buddha understood that no one will get it. Um, there's a famous story of his dear friend Ananda coming to him one day and saying, this cycle of dependent origination is so vivid and clear to me. I really get it. And it's so important. And the Buddha says, no, Ananda, you don't really get it. It's way too subtle. It's way too significant. It's way too powerful for anyone to just get. And what the Buddha meant is that Ananda had, a pretty intellectual understanding that was quite deep. And he could see the experience that is described by the cycle of dependent origination. You could see it in action. But the Buddha was basically saying to really awaken is to really touch the complexity and depth of the reality that we live in, of what this is, of what we are. So, my starting point this morning is going to come from, of course, the Anapanasati Sutta. Um, Toward the end of the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha has a section on the 7 factors of awakening. So that seems appropriate as a starting point for discussing what it was that the Buddha saw during his awakening. So I'm going to read the first, there are 7 paragraphs in the section called The 7 Factors of Awakening in the Anapanasati Sutta. On whatever occasion you remain focused on the body in and of itself, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. On that occasion, you're steady and without lapse. When your mindfulness is steady,
There's no sound coming from you, Brian.
now I know I apparently went on a journey.
You were awakened.
And it didn't feel like awakening. It felt like a computer glitch.
Maybe that's it.
All right, there you go. So I'll start again. On whatever occasion that you remain focused on the body in and of itself, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. On that occasion, your mindfulness is steady and without lapse. When your mindfulness is steady and without lapse, then mindfulness as a factor of awakening becomes aroused. You develop it, and it goes toward the culmination of its development. Okay, so what's being said here outside of such obscure language? So let's start with the first line. It says, on whatever occasion you remain focused. So first of all, if we look at that, we can divide our lives into moments when we know what we're paying attention to. We're conscious of what we're paying attention to. And moments when we're not conscious of what we're paying attention to. It's a very interesting division. It's a very interesting way of looking at our lives. Moments when we're paying attention and know what we're paying attention to, and moments when we're paying attention and we have no idea what we're paying attention to. If you want to have some authority, some agency around how you respond to what's going on at the moment, in your experience, it's really useful if you know what's going on. It's really, really useful to know what it is that you are in fact noticing, what it is that you are in fact paying attention to. It increases your ability to choose, to make decisions intentionally rather than habitually. This is the main thing we're working on, is to learn how to make decisions, to make choices intentionally from wisdom and experience rather than habitually, formed earlier in our lives. That's a big deal. If there was nothing else in this practice besides that, that frankly would be a lot. That would be tremendous. This is what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is knowing what it is that you are experiencing in this very moment. Knowing what you're thinking, knowing what you're feeling, knowing what information your senses are bringing into your perceptual system. Knowing this, and then responding to what it is that you are seeing, what it is that you know you're experiencing, responding out of wisdom, out of experience, out of choice, choosing intentionally how to respond, rather than simply letting habit carry you away. So when this line continues, on whatever occasion you remain focused, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. Putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world is another way of saying putting aside habitual response. Greed and distress is simply something occurs. You see something, you hear something, you think something, someone says something to you, someone does something in your presence. And if you like it, if it's pleasant for you, if it's appropriate and a fit for you, then you want it to continue. You want it to exist. You want it to be part of your life experience. Somebody says or does something kind to you, and you want it to continue. It's quite natural. There's nothing wrong here. Somebody does something that is unkind, says something, does something unkind, and you don't want it to continue. You want it to go away. You want that experience to not be part of your life. You want to extinguish it. This too is completely natural. There's nothing wrong with it at all. This is where greed and distress with reference to the world arises constantly. It's part of our normal life experience. Here's the difference. When you remain focused, when you know that, oh, that person said something, and look how I want it to be. Look how happy I am. Look how it's affecting me. or the person says something unkind, and you go, oh, I see this. I heard you say that. I see that hurt is arising inside me. Upset is arising inside me. Maybe anger is arising inside me. I see this. Unseen, unfocused on, unattended to, unconscious that the person has said this kind or unkind thing, you just react. You react out of your old habits because what else are you going to do? That's what we do. Every one of us across the world. Plants, animals, people, water. We all react automatically out of habitual processes. This practice is the practice of mindfulness, the practice of knowing that I just heard a kind or an unkind word. My body is responding to that kind or unkind word. I see this vividly. I see it clearly. And now I can choose how to respond. And somebody could say something kind. Maybe it's someone you just met. And they say something kind. And you go into a thought stream where at some point clearly this person's going to become your best friend. Noticing that, you smile and you say, well, that's not surprising you feel that way. And you bring in some experience and wisdom and you say, maybe it would be nice to get to know this person a little more and see where it goes. Instead of immediately saying, oh, we should get together and have dinner and we should go for a walk. Take your time. Start with a cup of coffee. You don't have to get all into such a deep wanting, however natural that is, of being with people who are kind to you, that you lose touch with what you know. And you just met this person. You don't know much at all. They simply said something very kind to you, and you like that. This is all great. Mindfulness causes us to pause and reflect, to bring our entire life experience to this. We have met people who have said kind things to us and turned out to be quite unavailable. We have met people who have said kind things to us and have turned out to be very complex and maybe difficult. And we have met people who are kind to us who became friends. All of these are possible, but we don't know yet. We meet a person and they say something unkind to us. We immediately want to get away from them. We immediately wish they weren't here. Wish they had never talked to us. Who needs this? My whole body feels like really terrible at the moment as a result of what this person said. Before you dump your drink on their head and push them to the floor, you take a moment and reflect. I don't really know this person. I don't know what it was that underneath these unkind words, what was going on for them? Maybe I would understand more if I got to know them more. Maybe I don't want to get to know them more, because why are they saying unkind things to me when they don't even know me yet? And you reflect on all of this and you pause. And instead of reacting habitually with anger and hurt, you let the anger and hurt sit. You know it, you experience it in the body, and you recognize how natural, how appropriate. Someone says something hurtful, I feel bad. Good. I'm glad I'm sensitive enough to know this. But before I act out of this hurt and anger, there is some investigation that needs to be done. Maybe the person said it for a reason that if you knew, if they explained, you would go, oh, God, that makes so much sense. You know, maybe you realized that there was some way you did something that pushed a button for them, that made them misunderstand, hit something that was very painful in their lives. And maybe in the end, you offer support. And oddly enough, the person apologizes, and you get to talking, and the next thing you know, you're really friendly. Who knew? Putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world does not mean it does not occur. Does not mean you don't experience it. The putting it aside is simply putting it over to the side while you focus your attention on how your body is responding. How do you feel? What habit patterns have arisen? This is mindfulness. In the text, it says, on whatever occasion that you remain focused on the body in and of itself, then it says ardent, alert, and mindful. Ardent, at least in my own personal definition, means that you're dedicated. You're dedicated to being awake, to paying attention, so that when you meet someone and they say something kind, or you meet someone and they say something unkind, you bring energy and excitement and especially joy. Joy that you're a living being. Joy that kindness brings up wanting. Joy that unkindness brings up not wanting. How useful that is. How incredibly useful that is. When you're thirsty and there's water, the water is a kindness. When you're thirsty and there's no water, that's an unkindness. This is no longer a person. This is just conditions. When you're thirsty and there's no water, you can get cranky. What would it be like to experience joy in the moment of crankiness? To be able to say, oh, well, how natural. Of course I'm cranky. And not getting what I want when I want it. I'm thirsty and want to quench my thirst now. then experience tells us, I'm going to be fine. I don't have to quench my thirst. I'm not dying of thirst. I'm just thirsty. And you arouse patience and forbearance. And the crankiness can simply be charming. Oh, so sweet. Poor cranky guy. Wishing he had his wants and needs met immediately all the time. How natural. Ardent is the energy of staying in that non-reactivity, accompanied by the joy of experience. Just simply the joy, not about good experience, not about bad experience, just the joy. I'm a being that experiences. Wow, what a gift. Ardent, alert. Alert. It means that, when someone says something kind or when someone says something unkind, you're alert, you know it. Alert is helpful because without alert, you might only notice that they said something unkind and then you went into a habitual reaction sometime later. You might miss the moment. And then it just becomes a memory of, oh, I wish I had. I wish I had caught that when it occurred. So how do we catch things when they occur? We remain alert. How do you remain alert? By being mindful. What is being mindful? Paying attention to what is actually occurring right now. What's not being mindful? Going off into stories. Disappearing from the present moment into a story about whatever you make up. On whatever occasion that you remain focused on the body in and of itself, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world, on that occasion, your mindfulness is steady and without lapse. And when your mindfulness is steady and without lapse, then mindfulness becomes a factor for awakening. So let's practice this. Whatever comes up, know that it's coming up. Whatever appears, know that it appears. And focus on the joy of experience, the very joy of experiencing life.